Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. Today's reading is probably going to be very future focused, I think, because it's asking your higher self to channel through and to give us messages that your higher self knows for your growth, your benefit, your happiness, your general well-being, things that you need to know about, what you're evolving into, what your path is, all of that sort of thing, and what is most important for you to know now. So we're going to sort of start with looking at some high-level energies. What are the kind of themes that your higher self might want to talk about? Then we're going to use tarot to look at key areas. What are the key messages? What warnings or advice or blessings does your higher self want to point out to you? We're going to use a second tarot deck then to really delve into the spiritual side of things, connecting what's going on at the moment, what your higher self is telling you to your broader life path, your spiritual development path. Then we'll look at it with oracle cards through various sort of lenses, like your sort of personality, presence, your spiritual and career and vocational development, and then finish off with a bit of a mythic, epic sort of encouragement for you and some affirmations. So hopefully that will give your higher self a good scope to tell you anything that your higher self thinks you need to know at this point in time or would like you to be thinking about or concentrating on. So, as always, it's important to pick the right reading or readings. By all means, go to more than one. Your higher self might be very chatty today and want to talk to you about a few things, so that's completely up to you as to what you feel drawn to. I'll put down the numbers for the decks. I'm using to help with the choice two things. One of the cards that will be part of the beginning of the reading from the Mystical Journey Oracle. I'm also bringing back the crystals, because I felt sort of called to use crystals today, and it kind of makes sense because I think crystals are sometimes something that helps us connect to our higher energy. So the crystal may draw you, the number may draw you, or potentially the different themes or pictures here. So for pile 1 we have the New Dawn card, for pile 2 we have the Growth card, for pile 3 we have the Cycles of Life, and for pile 4 we have Self-Care. I don't know what other cards are under here. I don't know what the full range of messages, obviously, they're going to come out in the readings. We'll see as they go along. So those keywords may be part of it and a large part of it that draws you in, or it may be just an aspect that you need to keep in mind while some bigger message comes through. So definitely just use it as one of the ways that could potentially guide you to the right reading. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, as always, I've got the timestamps down in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So this card and another are, as I say, from the Mystical Journey Oracle. We also have some Archangel energy here and the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. And this is just meant to give a high-level set of themes that your higher self may want to talk to you about. And it's partly to set the tone for the reading, but it's also to try and make sure for anybody who's come here that, yes, this kind of resonates. I think I'm in the right reading. This feels like something my higher self would talk to me about, because if not, you may want to check out one of the other readings. So I think there's actually a fairly clear message here. There's a sub-message as well too, but I want to go with the clear one first. The New Dawn card, I think you were drawn to it because you know it's time for a change. It's time for you to redesign yourself, represent yourself in the world. And I think it's really all about the balance of your head and your heart. And this looks to me as though underneath you are someone who is incredibly compassionate, incredibly empathic and kind. But I think you're also an incredibly harsh critic of yourself. Like, you hold yourself to extraordinarily high standards about how you deal with other people, what is right and wrong, and so forth, to the point that you have turned that mind energy, which is sharp and brilliant, on yourself. And it's brought about a kind of low self-esteem, because in doing it, it's like you're covering up the balance of the emotional. So the Universal Mother here card is all about the feminine energy. This is not saying that you have to be a woman or anything like that. It's divine feminine and divine masculine, and the card talks about the fact that we need both, but that we live very much in a world that is more patriarchal, or certainly has been for many, many centuries. And as a result, it's quite common for that sort of energy to be suppressed, to succeed in some way, to seem strong, to feel like you fit a cutout, whatever it might be. So your higher self, I think, is using Gabriel here, who rules over the moon, so emotions, to get back to, bring a message to you, to get back to your emotional core, that you are, as I say, incredibly empathic and caring about other people. You wouldn't hurt a soul, basically, I think, but you hurt yourself because you don't have this imbalance. You are expecting too much of yourself, and possibly not allowing kindness and empathy to come towards you, because, as I say, you probably come across to people as very strong, very clear, very knowledgeable. Most people would have no idea that you are trying to look at a new way to balance your life, trying to bring a new set of sort of systems in for you. And it's quite possible, we'll see with the cards coming on, that there may be a bit of pushback that you need to deal with, because if you've been someone who's been very, very giving, it's quite possible that people won't appreciate if you actually ask for something in return. Not because they're bad, but because that's the way relationships operate. People get used to something. But certainly there's a healing aspect of this, to get back to the sun that Raphael looks over for your life path. So this is very much connecting you. Gabriel also connects you in the Kabbalah, and we will be talking about the Kabbalah a little bit later in the reading, to the higher realms, because what he or she watches over Hesod, which is the foundation, the first point, the first Sephiroth in the Kabbalah above Malkuth, which is earth. So this is it's a connecting point for you to re-establish both your emotional and your intellectual and spiritual basis in a way that is more balanced for you. So there's certainly a sense for many that have come here that this is about reawakening your self-care, reawakening your kindness to yourself, not only pushing that outwards, but also literally with this card, with the 5 of air in this deck, it is about taking off the blindfolds, taking off the masks, and being able to be more authentic, not living in this sort of more rigid, cold, analytical, kind of detached energy that the Queen of Air can have at times. And you are certainly not that. And I think more often than not, anybody who's the Queen of Air is not going to be really that. It's just a frontal personality aspect that gives a certain degree of detachment and strength. If you are in an environment that's demanding, or where you feel that you need to hide and protect your emotional core. This could easily come up if you've been through a difficult relationship or something like that, where you have felt you had to detach, you had to look at it analytically, you had to make the decision, but there's still some grieving almost to do to bring you into the new dawn. So that's the general thing that I think will be for most. If it's not literally about a relationship, it's just about you getting yourself into balance and opening up that kind of kindness, and not being, you might be in a very restrictive work environment, for instance, where you feel you just have to follow the rules and you can't have a personal opinion. It might be bringing that into balance and working out, well, is it in that environment, or do I do it in a different environment and express myself in a different way, using Gabriel's expressive messenger qualities to be able to do that, and Raphael's help in healing you to be able to do this. The other thing that I did get, though, as I put this out, so this will be specific for, one maybe only, or possibly only a small number of people, is that some of you may be about to move into parenthood. You don't necessarily have to be the mother. You could be the non-birthing parent, certainly, but there is something potentially around that. And I feel, if that's the case, that this child is very special. With Gabriel turning up, Gabriel, of course, was the one who announced the upcoming birth of Christ. So, which is not to say that I think that you're going to necessarily have the second coming. It's more a sense of a child that is important spiritually and brings in a new dawn, and possibly a new dawn to you. It may be that for some of you, this child shifts you from a very analytical, scientific, rules-based, in your head type of life into one that is more about connecting to the heart. So that's going to be the case for one, maybe only, or maybe a small number of people. But I feel that the higher self, certainly for you, wants you to connect into that sort of emotional side, if that's the case, and potentially be aware there might be something quite special about this child. I just feel where that's the case, we're talking about a special sort of energy coming through as your child. So let's see if we can get a little bit more detail. We're going to use the Wisdom of the Unknown Tarot for a few questions. We're going to ask what are the key areas that your higher self really wants to talk about within this sort of scope, or anything broader than that. We want to see what key messages come out of that, what warnings or advice your higher self has for you around that. Then we're going to use the Tarot of Magical Correspondences to see how this connects with your life path, your spiritual path, your broader soul development. So firstly, we're looking more in the material 3D world, really, like the day-to-day. So what key messages is the higher self of the collective of pile 1 trying to bring through, Spirit, please? Okay. So I'm getting both those messages again, to be honest. So I'm going to go with the general one first, and then we'll focus in on if it's around a child or around starting a family. So firstly, Spirit is saying that this is actually manifesting in your material world. You aren't getting necessarily the support and the nourishing from other people that you could potentially, and you're perhaps not even giving it to others. There is a deep sense of empathy in you, but it is somehow suppressed, and it's possibly because you're in an environment where that is not valued. It feels as though the emotional side of things, the divine feminine side of things in whatever situation you're in, so it could be a relationship, it could be a career, it could be a creative project, it could be your friendship circle, there is a dissonance whenever that's talked about. So it feels like, for instance, someone who works in a highly scientific environment and everything is about the facts and everything is about the repeatability of experiments and so forth. The side of you that might want to say, but there's actually a ethical point of view to this, or there's an emotional side that we need to look at. That wouldn't compute where you are by the looks of things. And whether you've deliberately chosen that because you feel comfortable with that, or whether it's because of circumstance and you're in that sort of environment, and that is just an example. I'm just trying to give you a feeling for the energy of this. That energy is not valued at this point, and yet it is a strength of yours. It's a strength that you aren't even recognizing in yourself. With the Queen of Earth reversed, it suggests that your groundedness, so I think it's a combination not just of water energy, not just of emotion, but also of manifestation and the earth and health and all of those sort of things. It's like there's a disconnect there. So you could be in a relationship where everything is about the discussion, the banter and so forth, but when you try to get to the emotional and the commitment, it isn't occurring because there's just a disconnect. Or you could be in a workplace, as I say, where it is all about the facts and the detail, and it's not about the consequences or the ethics of it in some way. As a result, things are out of balance, including what you feel you're getting from what you're giving. And I think it's because you know on some level that you're not giving everything that you could give. And whether it's because it's the wrong relationship, Spirit might be saying if a relationship is doing this to you, that you're having the strength, but you're having to keep it under strict regulation to get along, go along to get along. And Spirit might be saying you need to think about whether this is really the right connection for you. Can you shift it? If it's in a workplace, and I think for many of you it could be in a workplace, then it really is, it might be that the intellectual facts and so forth, as I say, you could be quite scientific, you could be quite into IT, anything that's in the air sort of area, academics, whatever it might be, that's all fine, but you need to find maybe the environment that is more in touch with what you would want to see in the material world coming from it and what you think is emotionally resonant. So there's a shift going. This is the new dawn. Bringing in balance for you is going to mean something materially different in either a relationship or career or something like that. If this is around the concept of a child, I think it's just Spirit saying that you're in a stronger position now. Maybe you didn't feel you could have a child before. Maybe you and your partner have tried before and it hasn't happened. It hasn't sort of come about. But there is a need to concentrate on your strength then, to not sort of put all of that secondary to a career or to other sort of activities and so forth, because it feels like the actual strength to bring this energy through, again, is being dissipated a bit by not sort of thinking about health and diet and all those things with the Pentacles energy here, and not thinking about what that would mean to be a nurturing person and what is almost the compromise that needs to be made with the material world. So again, it's very specific, but there's a great deal of strength around this and a great deal of strength around the child, I have to say, if this is about that for you. But as I say, that's quite specific, but it's come up twice. So let's ask a little bit more detail. Let's say what are the key messages out of all of this, and then we're going to ask what warnings or advice does Spirit have around it for you, as I say, before we use the other tarot deck. So firstly, okay, we've got the sense that this is about bringing things into balance. whether it's relationships, career, or even just your own physical and material environment, so that you could potentially bring another person into the world. So whatever it is, what's the key thing that Spirit really wants you to focus on? Almost what's first? Okay. So Spirit's saying there is a huge amount of potential for you, whether it's material, whether it's having a child, whether it's creative, whatever it might be. There is huge potential now to manifest something that you want. You're kind of, the new dawn is definitely there. Whatever this is about, whatever this relates to, you are at the first step of it. But it has huge potential. There's a blessing about it. But Spirit is saying don't underestimate how much it's going to shift your world. The Tower, I think, here is a good card, particularly when it's clarifying strength, because it says you have the strength to go through it. But it is a change. This is a genuine new dawn. This is a genuine rebalancing of your life. You will have to change. And one of the things you'll have to change is how you communicate with others. And maybe, because this is like the page of swords, so the page of air, maybe suppress a little bit of your own intellectual sort of fervour. You're very smart. But the problem is that this at the moment is maybe the thing that's holding you back. And I do think you're too critical of yourself. So I think that Spirit is definitely saying you have everything you need to take this forward. Do not doubt yourself as you go through the change. Turn off the little voice in your head that tells you all the things that could go wrong. Like turn off the Queen of Air. She can be turned on again later. What you need more is the emotional and the sort of the Queen of Earth to be turned around. You need more of that to focus on what are the material outcomes, because you can do it and you can bring it through. If this is a new business that you're starting, then it's one that's got a huge potential to be closer to your heart and your values, but it will take a lot of work and a lot of change in what you're doing. And that's why it's very important not to turn on the self-critic, because right from the beginning the self-critic was there. If this is around bringing a new life in, then it is going to change your life a lot, and everybody in the known universe is going to have an opinion on it. So just turn off everybody's opinions. Like just find one good doctor and get the right advice and all of that kind of thing. Don't sort of crowdsource for views about how to do this. Don't second guess yourself. Again, you are going to be more aligned to this. This is coming through. If it is a child, it's coming through for a reason, and you are the absolute right parent, or as I say, whether you're the birthing parent or not. Okay, so what warnings does Spirit want to give? Warnings or advice, but I think warnings are probably good here, because I think it is, there is a necessity for you to regulate and balance yourself and put your healing and emotions first. So what else would Spirit like to warn you about, or your higher self would like to warn you about? Okay, so your higher self is saying that your secondary energy, and this hasn't come up as much apart from, that there was a sort of disconnect in sort of values and what actually mattered and so forth in your current life compared to where you're sort of developing into. But Spirit is saying like your first energy is probably air, so it's sort of like the thoughts and the philosophies and so forth. Your second like strongly developed energy is actually fire. So you are so fast. This is one of the things that Spirit wants to say. The two fastest suits are air and fire. So you put those two together, you go at a rate of knots. And this might be why you're critical of yourself, because you're kind of aware on some level that maybe you're not paying attention to all the details. So then if something goes wrong, instead of understanding that that's part of learning, you may turn that sort of energy on yourself and castigate yourself. But you can't stop how fast you think. You can't stop how fast creative energy comes through and so forth. So I think Spirit says, come to terms with that, come to like that, but don't let it stop you feeling. Like it's like your feelings have got attached to a sense of it must be perfect, and if it isn't, I'm going to castigate myself. It's like your feeling nature has got attached to all the things that you feel you've done wrong. Where Spirit wants to say you do a hell of a lot right, and that's one of the reasons that you can move so fast, and it's one of the reasons why you're so creative in whatever form it is. But don't ignore the emotional side of it. Don't ignore what your body. I think it's actually telling you to some degree that you are quite sensate in your sort of psychic ability. You're quite kinesthetic. You are likely to feel things in your body. Do not ignore that, because that is a combination of your body and your emotions talking to you. It's the only thing. Spirit says everything else is there. You have everything else there. But if you don't look after your emotional balance, then the Queen of Air can come along and start ripping apart everything that you do because you're going fast. If this is around nurturing, having a child or so forth, then definitely make sure it's likely to happen quite quickly. If you've been working on it, it's likely to happen quite quickly now, and it's likely to be a very fiery energy with a child. If you are the birthing parent, you might want to make sure you get plenty of rest and not to get overwhelmed by it. It may also be, and this is again, it's very specific, that you may find if you are the birthing parent that once you've had the child, you may sort of need sort of emotional support and so forth. Sometimes there are things with hormones and so forth that happen after that. There may be, so don't think you have to be the perfect birthing parent. Like, you have a perfectionism, which is part of your drive, but it's working against you, I think is all that your higher self is saying. So, okay, so that's very sort of, it's really around kind of, as I say, having a child or career, potentially relationship. If it's relationship, I think it's saying a new one's going to come in fast, but don't suppress your heart. Listen to your heart about it. Don't just get swept up in the passion, because you could repeat a pattern, I think is what it's saying there, if that's the case. But that's all very sort of material. But we also want to ask with the Tarot of mystical or magical correspondences, what or who are you becoming as a result? And so this is a deck that links with the Kabbalah. So I want to sort of get a sense of what the linkages are there and some of the Sephiroth energy that is being triggered in this part of your life path that your higher self wants you to look at. And I don't use reversals with this, so... Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say, I will talk about what the classic meaning of these cards are, but I want to talk about the Kabbalah as part of the life path. 2 of these 5 cards connect to Tiphereth, and I think that might be the real key here. Tiphereth is the Christ consciousness. It is the Sephiroth of beauty and joy. It is about where you find joy. And I think what your higher self is saying is that you've lost touch with where you find joy. This is why you need the new dawn. This is why you need to balance into the sort of emotional and divine feminine. Somewhere along the way, in being incredibly fast, incredibly clever, incredibly successful potentially, or whatever it is, or feeling like you just have to be right for some reason, you just have to have the facts right, you lost the joy in whatever you were doing. And you could reignite it, but you need to sort of emotionally connect it. So Tiphereth there, I think, is trying to say to you, the core of everything, the core of this journey is about joy. You also have a little bit of advice here about balancing discipline, which is Gevurah, which is your self-critical side. It's where you hold yourself in regulation, with Hesed, which is about honouring others. So it is saying that part of who you are and part of the reason you're so critical of yourself and you turn that emotional energy outwards is that you do have a really strong sense that I should be right by other people. And that's true. Your higher self is fine with that, just as long as you bring the same to yourself. Because, as I say, you've kind of lost the joy. You're very, very ethical, but I think you may be in an environment where you've had to suppress some of that, or you only can express it by supporting other people and you kind of are eating away at yourself. So that's very important. If this is, I'll get back to the thing about if it's a child. I'll do the general first. So there's definitely that Spirit is saying there's nothing wrong. So your higher self is saying there's nothing wrong with your self-regulation. It's just the balance of it. Get back to the joy. Binah here is all about the combination of wisdom and compassion, and that's the balance. Binah picks up the compassion side. Hokmah, which is the next one up before you get to Keter, which I'll get to, is about just undifferentiated wisdom, and to some extent feels a bit like, even though the queens would connect to Binah, I think, but even though I feel like the Queen of Swords in a way is a bit more like Hokmah. It's a little bit more detached. Both the Queen and King of Swords is detached, just wisdom, undifferentiated. Binah brings in the heart. That's why it's all about compassion and love. And Keter is the divine purpose, the divine consciousness. So it's definitely saying that there is something about this new dawn, there's something about you coming into balance that has an importance to your divine purpose, your divine life path. This is an important thing. Whatever you have felt about it and whatever area you feel drawn to put your energy is the right thing to do. Absolutely. And also, if this is about a child, as I say, there's something very special about the child. Very beautiful child, I would say, compassionate like you, and one that maybe is going to be so powerful and smart and ahead of their time that your main task may be to bring them into balance, to understand how to honour others. They're kind of like you on steroids if this is a child. Okay, so it doesn't have to be, as I say, but I'm just feeling this is for somebody who's going to see this reading, and whenever it is that they see it, whether it's when I first publish it or whether it's further along the path. The other things that I would say is that with the classic meaning of the cards, this is again strength. So you have the strength for this life path change. It is about connecting to your heart more with the Knight of Cups and the Three of Cups, and there is much to celebrate if you can do that. You will find you are happier if you do this. You've been a bit of a hermit, you've been a bit separate. Ace of Wands is coming up again. So there is the potential for, if you have been a hermit, if part of this change is that you've been so much in your mind that you haven't had a relationship for a while, then this may be the new dawn. And if that's the case, then Spirit is definitely saying, or your higher self is definitely saying, it's time to come out of the hermit life, and it's time to go into something that's more collective and more connected and all of that sort of thing. And if this is around career, then you may need to put yourself forward a little bit more. Show what your heart is, show what your creative vision is, but you have the strength to do it. Okay, so let's have a look at some key aspects of your personal presence using a couple of different oracle decks that Spirit your higher self just wants you to think about at the moment in relation to this. So these may either be things to not do, or they may be things to do, depending upon what cards we get. Conscientiousness and approbativeness. Okay, so I think this is actually just picking up where some of this has come from, and it's, again, I think it's a bit like the Gevurah and Hesed here. Spirit, or your higher self, is not saying this is bad, but it's saying keep this in balance and understand it. There is a balance for you between your ethics and what you believe in and your ambition. So for many of you, this is something to do with career and so forth, or who you're going to be in the world. So Spirit is saying one of the things you need to think about is, are you being critical of yourself and holding yourself in such strict regulation because of ethics, in which case get back into your heart, decide how to express who you are more, and potentially move on if you're in the wrong place? Or are you doing it because of ambition, because you just want to fit in? And if that's the case, then you're not going to connect to your heart. You're going to continually sit in that Queen of Air, and that's not going to help your self-development long term. So I think Spirit just wants you to, or your higher self wants you to think about, put your ambition and so forth towards something that you feel ethical about, something that you feel is the right way of doing things. Okay. Many of you may be in, as I say, very contentious, very political environments potentially with these sort of cards. Let's get another couple of cards that, as I say, may either be something to do more of or something to think about, or something about the environment that you're in. Okay, tan complexion probably doesn't tell us a lot, so I might put out 3. Water sign, faithful. Okay, I think this is picking up if it's about a relationship. So this is going to be kind of specific. I think that's more for the people that this is about career. I think this is more about a relationship. I think this is saying that there is possibly someone who has that kind of physical characteristics. They don't have to, but water sign connection, and that would be good for you because you're, as I say, you're living very much in your head and to some degree in the material. Oh, sorry, in your head and the fire sign, but you're not getting to the material and the water. So water sign would help you. Faithful also gives you that sense of security. I do think one of the reasons that if you haven't been in a relationship or you haven't committed to a relationship that you've been in, it may be because you didn't really feel that the sort of faithfulness, the sort of commitment was there, the emotional heft and the commitment was there, or that you weren't sure if you could give it. So I think this would just be saying that for some of you who come here, there may be something around a relationship connecting to water sign energies that in fact will give you that sense of, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can be in a long-term relationship. Yes, I can have a child, whatever it might be. Okay, so that's personal aspects. Now let's have a look at spiritual aspects and then career and sort of astrological energy. So we're going to start firstly with spiritual aspects. So just a couple of cards to give a sense about energies around you that your higher self wants to focus in on. Life Path 9 and Warrior Spirit. Okay, so Life Path 9 is wise, giving, humanitarian. This is, being able to inspire others, sometimes rescues people. So this, again, it's sort of like you put all your emotional energy into others. So the higher self wants you to think about that. It's more about leading people and showing people by example, and maybe rescuing yourself to some degree by bringing things into balance rather than coming up with the solutions all the time for people, because you could be very solutions oriented actually with that Queen of Air, and you could feel that that's the role you always have to take. Part of you wants a battle. There's something about commitment to challenges. There's something about seeing life as a bit of a battle. But I think it's a battle you're having with yourself, part one. I mean, you may well be in an environment that makes you feel that way, in which case think about the environment you're in. Why are you in it? Is it the right one? How could you move or change it? So forth. But if you see life as a battle, then you're always going to be holding yourself in strict regulation. You're not likely to open your heart. So I just think that your higher self wants you to think about that, about not having it as a battle all the time. Let's have a look around sort of career and manifestation, what Spirit wants to talk to you about, or your higher self wants to talk to you about. Clover. Watch. Okay, things are definitely looking good around career or study, if you're studying, depending upon your age and so forth. There's a lucky break coming. This is the new dawn. There is something coming. For some of you, there's a very strong career element to all of this. I've just been trying to touch some of the other stuff as well, but there's a very strong career element to this where there's a lucky break coming, an opportunity, maybe a bit of a risk that you take to do something differently or move to something else, but there's something there. But it's lucky with Clover. There's surprises. There's things that kind of are going to help you along. Your higher self says that that the universe is going to move in a direction to help you bring about the new dawn. And it's time to do well. It's time to profit. You do need to seize the moment. There's an opportunity. When the opportunity happens, take it, whatever that might be. If it's time off, if you are looking to start a family and it's time off work, then take that, to get the sort of right sort of bodily balance and so forth, whatever it might be. Okay, let's have a look at what astrological energy is around you that your higher self wants you to focus on. South Node. Mutable. Yeah. There's things to move away from. There's a pattern that you've done, and it probably has worked for you. I think that many of you, particularly in career, you've probably been quite successful. But it is time to move away from it. The South Node is really the things that we're moving away from. The new dawn. It's like, don't dwell on the past. Look for the new way that brings things more into balance for you, and so forth. And then mutable, is about being open to difference and flexibility and transformation and so forth. You could be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius or Pisces. You don't have to be, but they're the mutable signs. Or it could be that you have planets in those signs, and they may give you a bit of an idea where the most flexibility is needed. So for instance, if you had Venus in one of those signs, it could be saying that's where you need to bring the flexibility in. If you had Mars, it might be saying around love. And around with Mars, it might be your ambition needs to be more flexible. Whatever it might be, if you know your chart, that could be interesting information for you from your higher self. Okay, so we're just going to finish off now. We're firstly going to draw a couple of cards from a Greek mythology deck to see what kind of epic energy you could bring in, sort of mythological epic energy that your higher self wants you to focus on. And then we'll use the crystal chakra deck for a couple of affirmations. Okay, reunion. Protect us. Okay, so there could be that for some of you, there is sort of a new dawn, but a change in a relationship, connecting up with others, different workplace that connects back to people that you've known before. Or it could be reunion with your own own emotional self and your own sort of sense of what you want to ground and bring into the world. So you'll know better whether a person is related to all of this or whether it's something that is more about a reunion of your own self. Certainly, you will always be protective of others. And if this is about being a parent, as I say, you'll be a very protective, very good parent. But Athena tends to stand a bit alone. So it is also an issue about balance again, like reunion of your own self, so that you don't always just stand in a separate area, that you do that when it's necessary, not as a default. Okay, so we're going to finish with just one crystal chakra card to see the chakra that your higher self most wants you to focus on and the affirmations they want to bring to you at this point. Pile 1. The sacral chakra. So this is about fertility, it's about love, it's about creativity, all of those sort of energies. And we have tangerine quartz, which is curiosity and playfulness. Yeah, get a little bit, have a bit of fun. Like, you're very serious, and there's a lot to be said for being serious, but sometimes you need to have fun. The affirmations that your higher self want to leave you with in this reading are, I honor my inner child by being playful, and I always feed my curiosity. So turn that brilliant mind to being curious, not critical. That's a big part of this shift, actually, and that will help you get everything more in balance within yourself, help you be protective when you need to be protective, and be, very sort of analytical and scientific and thought-based when you need to be, but also emotional when you need to be. Start to look at life as fun, not just as something that is a battle all the time. That's what your higher self would like you to do, Pile 1. I hope that this resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So this is the other card from the Mystical Journey deck that came with the one that drew you to this reading. And then we have some Dreams of Gaia cards and also some Archangel energy to have a look at in terms of what your higher self wants to talk to you about. And I have to say right from the outset, this will help you know whether you've come to the right reading as to whether you think this would be something your higher self does want to talk to you about. But this is about love. Like, I don't think this is going to be about career or about sort of manifestation or any of those things, unless it is manifesting love or having a career that you truly love. I guess there's an extrapolation you could do on that level. But I think for most, this is about one of a number of scenarios. First love, potentially, with the journey and with the sort of rites of passage and parts of growth. It could be the great love coming in. It could be somebody coming back, so a reunion. And it could also be, for some, because of the death rebirth idea here and the birth of the new that we get with the ace of air or ace of swords. Sorry, I had a little bit of a mind blank then. With that sort of energy, it could very well be that this is a love that comes into a life of someone who's quite mature, and the last thing that they expected ever to be coming into their life was, in fact, a new love. So it could be a bit of a surprise for some of you. But that is the energy. It's something like that. And whether it's something that's just happened and you're now seeing this as growth and your higher self really wants to sort of steer you through this, or whether it's been a period of time, since you've been in love, or as I say, you may even think that you're past all of that. There's definitely this sort of sense of that coming in, and your higher self wants to talk about that. And it's romantic love, I feel. Like, it is possible for some of you, you could have a romance with an idea or a concept and a creative thing. So we will see what else does come out with the tarot. But I think really for most, this is about romantic love in one form or another. They're highly inspiring to you and you get inspired by it. So there could be a connection between being in love and having a romantic energy and inspiration. So it is possible that for some, your higher self is saying you are most inspired and most creative when you're in love. So don't shut yourself off from love, particularly if you've been hurt. There could be a message of that with Haniel coming out twice there. But you're on a new journey. So I think it's something new coming in, or as I say, a reunion coming back, and it's going to be different. And there's a rite of passage associated with it. This is why I feel for some it could be first love or first real love. You might have dated a lot, but this is the first big one, so to speak. There's something like that, or it could be leveling up. It could be getting married. It could be moving in. It could be something. It's something that is growing for you and changing. For some of you, it could in fact be starting a family as well. That is possible with death and rebirth and growth and rites of passage. But I think for most, romance is on the menu, quite frankly, and that's what your higher self wants to talk to you about. So that's pretty simple because it's all pretty much one thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to use one tarot deck now to ask a little bit more broadly about the key areas involved, and then what the absolute key messages are, and then we're going to ask for any sort of warnings or advice that's necessary that your higher self thinks you need to know. So firstly, let's just get a bit more information on what your higher self is wanting to talk to you about. Pile 2. Okay, this is interesting. I'm going to tell you something quite specific that's going to fit some of you, and then I'll go more general because it's not going to fit everybody. But I think for some, this rites of passage, I think this is about finding someone who you think could be the one or could be the life partner. I think that you are someone who formerly just didn't really believe in any of that. Like you really kind of know, I'm a free spirit. I don't believe in marriage or living together. I don't believe in long-term relationships. I just don't. It's like you really rejected that, and quite quickly for something. And maybe you came from a family where your parents split up, and you go, well, what's the point? There's something where you were very quick to judgment around anything that was conventional in terms of emotion. But there is a real love, a real connection, a real heart connection coming in, and you're going to start to rethink this and think, is actually a longer term connection right? Does this have the capacity to be something where I would not only tie my heart and my body, but also my sort of legal sort of existence to this person? And will I come out of being just on my own? There is something here. It's more than just falling in love, I think. It's really about what is the next step? What does this mean? What is this in my life path? This is a significant relationship. So if you don't have one at the moment, one's coming in, I would say your higher self is just letting you know it's coming. And maybe have a bit of a think about the fact that you don't be too quick to going, well, no, I'll just go out with them for a while. I just don't get involved, because your heart is going to be really connected to this person, and it's really going to make you think about the legalities around it. It's also possible, I'm getting that for some of you, you could be actually coming out of a legal situation because of something new coming in. So it could be that, some of you might be here about love has come back into your life after you've been in a loveless marriage, for instance. You are moving out of that one because it wasn't what you wanted. You are using the legal system to do that so that you can actually then be more open about who you care about. That's quite specific, but it could be the case. So I'm really feeling for many of you, it's that sort of thing. If it's broader, then there may be some things, if you're young and this is your first love, or if you're older and you're thinking, how exhausting. I don't know that I want a relationship at the moment. Your higher self is asking you to think about that, about what are your ideas that you have? What have you been programmed to think about love? Because there's something that's not quite right about that, either through your experience or what other people have told you. And letting go of that so that you can really get to your heart and see what it really is, and be more of who you are. That's what your higher self wants you to do. So let's ask for a key message from your higher self about this. Okay, this is pretty clear. Have the courage to love. You have hidden yourself away for some reason, or as I say, this is first love, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. Spirit does want you, your higher self wants you to know that you have the warmth and the grace and the beauty to do this, and the heart to do this. Don't doubt that that's the case. And if you are older, as I say, and you've been through one cycle of maybe having a family, maybe you have had a family, you've had children, possibly your significant other has passed on, or you've divorced or something, you've been on your own for a while, you still have that, if that's the issue. And if you're young, then I think there's actually a maternal figure that could help you with this and help guide you with it. So that's good. It's a positive energy. May be your mother, but it could also be, a friend who's very nurturing, therapist, anything, whatever it might be, depending upon what you're dealing with. But certainly there is a lot of love, beauty and growth for you through this. Like, so there's a lot of promise with an ace. It's just at its beginnings. It's got so much potential, but you do need to have the courage to look at it and consider it. You know, and that your higher self's never going to force you to do it if you decide you don't want to. Rites of passage need to be taken seriously, but do have the courage to consider it. Okay, so let's see what kind of warnings or advice your higher self wants to give you about this. Okay, so the one thing that Spirit is saying, and this again, it's going to, or your higher self is saying, and it's going to depend upon, you know, as I say, whether it's first love, a returned love, love when you're older, whatever it might be, is that don't let the patterns, well, there's two messages or two pieces of advice or warning here. One is that don't let the patterns of the past that took out your hope of this. So this is for those of you who've loved before and it wasn't what you wanted, and you may be going, oh, can I do this again? Or if it's a rerun, a reunion, don't let the lack of happiness that happened before still the sort of like the attraction and the energy and the passion of it. So don't dim your light before it even has a chance to see if it works. This is part of the courage. It's like, but equally it's saying, do make sure if you are going to take this step that it's not just lust. It's not just a physical attraction. There needs to be the emotional connection, and there needs to be a spiritual connection as well. If those two things are there, then you can go forward with the two aces there with the blessing. Just have the courage and see where it's taking you, because this is part of your growth. This is a rite of passage for you. You are meant to have romance and love in your life and to be inspired. And also this is saying, don't let only the unhappy things. If this is about creativity, actually, I'm just having a look at Haniel over there. If this is actually about creativity rather than love, so it's a creative passion that you have, don't let things that haven't worked be the only things that inspire you. You know, you should be inspired also by what is beautiful and growing and can take things forward. Okay, so we're also going to look at what this means on a higher level for you, what your higher self really wants in terms of spiritual growth. So we're going to use the Tarot of Magical Correspondences so that I can see some connections and energies from the Kabbalah and the Sephiroth and the Kabbalah first before I just do a classic reading of the cards as well. So this is really your higher self talking to you. Now this is really more in the 3D. Now the higher self wants to sort of give you an idea about the energies at a higher level for your spiritual development. Okay, so I think the first thing very strongly that your higher self wants to tell you in terms of your spiritual development is that Empress energy, it's very strongly there to give you support and to nourish you and to protect you. There's a highly protective energy around you, and it's because you have a very lovely soul. You're a very compassionate and caring person. The love that you bring is very pure. We have Binar twice here, and that is talking about the sort of combination of compassion and wisdom. So there is wisdom. I do feel for some of you who've come here, you're older and this is something new, and as I say, it's sort of like, oh my goodness. But you definitely have the wisdom then. But if not, there is wisdom around you, either wisdom within your own soul and your higher self from past lives, or wisdom in terms of some sort of energy or person around that can help you. So it's certainly saying that this is taking you more towards your loving and compassionate nature, and also towards some beauty and joy, because Tippereth, which is about beauty and joy, is being triggered by two of these cards. Gevera here with Tippereth is a good balance. It's saying that Gevera gives discipline and gives sort of limitations when it's necessary. It's almost like the strict parent in a way, but not to this extent that it would stop you doing something, to the extent that within yourself you can regulate something and you can be sure that it fits with your ethics and so forth. So that's really good. And here we have Malkuth, which says this is very much something that's happening in this material world. So this love situation is for your spiritual development, but it is happening in the material world. It's not a spiritual love for a guide or for And I think it's also saying, I mean, it could be for a creative project, but for most of you, it is a love relationship in this earth, and there is a victory with Nesach that you can have from this. So there is something where this part of your growth will prove something to yourself, to others as well, and it's a good thing to do. Your higher self says that as long as you use Gevurah, as I say, for the kind of sensible making sure that this is what you want, it's not just kind of a passion without the sort of heft behind it, then your loving nature and your sense of joy will actually bring you victory in this. So that's really positive. In terms of the classic meaning of the cards, you have psychic energy here with the moon and the emotions being triggered. Justice again. So justice came up twice. I think for some of you, this is about getting married or something like that. Something that has a legal, it doesn't have to be literally getting married, but something that has sort of legal or structural impacts on your life. This is why we had rites of passage. 2 queens suggests you're coming into who you are. You don't have to be a woman for this. You're coming into who you are. You're coming into a sense of stability in your life with the Queen of Coins and emotional authenticity. And with the Knight of Swords, all of this happens quite quickly and may surprise some people around you. Might surprise you. I keep getting that for some who come here, you're going to be older and this is the last thing you expected. But it's very, very positive, I think. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the impacts more generally. So we're going to look at some personal, your persona, your personal presence first, that may be impacted by this, that your higher self wants to talk about. So this may either be something that your higher self wants you to do more of, or it might be less. You know, given the message that we've got here, we'll work that out as we see what cards we get. So, colour and eventuality. Okay. I think this is all very positive. I think that your higher self wants you to sort of see this as colourful, as building your character, as something fun. Those 2 aces. Get out into the world a bit. Don't be the hermit reversed. Be curious with eventuality. And also believe, eventuality feels to me also that there's sort of, there is something that is going to happen. You know, it is meant to happen. So these rites of passage, this growth, this is part of not only your development and what you would expect, but what you would expect almost in the passage of life. And even if it is a surprise for older people, that's okay. Just get curious. So I think Spirit is saying these are things to, or your higher self is saying, open up those sides of you, you know, because this is a positive energy. Okay, let's see with another deck. Light hair, confident, politics. Okay, so I think this is just picking up things that are either you, parts of you that are just sort of saying and that, you know, you could use to benefit, or that are going to be a description of this sort of person. So you may have light hair. Spirit might be saying, you know, go and, you know, get a new haircut or something like that, make yourself feel really, you know, as attractive as you want, and whatever it might be. Maybe it's just that, or it might be that the person that you are drawn to has light hair. Be more confident in yourself, definitely. You have every reason to be confident, and I think possibly the person will be confident. There may be some connection to politics. So it might be that, you know, and that could be they're in politics, you're in politics, or it just might be that you start and you meet and you talk about politics and you kind of firstly connect there and click there. There's something around that, and it could be local level politics through to national or international. There's something around that. It could also be with politics that they're around your friendship circle or family circle. There may be some kind of disagreement around this. You need to be a little bit politic in how you introduce this person into your life. That's a possibility as well. Okay, so let's now look at other aspects, spiritual and 3D. So we're going to start with around your spiritual development again, just a couple of cards to show what other energy your higher self wants to talk to you about. Mastery, life path 5. Okay, so mastery suggests that you have mastered something in your life. So maybe there is something, maybe around career or something that brings this person in, brings the love in. And you also, it's suggesting that you've mastered what you need to do to go through this rite of passage. So if it's your first love, you've grown up enough and you understand enough to be able to sort of fall in love and to know that there is something to it. If you know, you've got a certain point in your career and now you can actually think about love because you've kind of put all your energy into your career, for instance. With Life Path 5, this is picking up this curiosity and so forth. This is about being a bit spontaneous, a little bit sort of flexible in what you do, where you go and so forth. You don't let love tie you down, which is interesting. It may be suggesting that that's one of the things you need to think about. Because remember I said at the beginning you might have eschewed that. I think that your higher self might be saying love shouldn't tie you down, but equally you shouldn't push it away because you presume it's always going to do that. There may be a balance you need to do of your own independence, which is probably quite strong with the mastery, with letting love in your life. Okay, let's have a look at it on a kind of career level. Even though I do think this is about love, we'll just see around career energies, whatever your higher self might want to say about that. Career or vocation or creativity. Years. Frame. Okay. I think your higher self isn't really that interested in talking about career, because I think they're saying you've been doing the hard yards, you've got the mastery, you've got money coming in, that's all good. You're quite secure, you've got a steady income, or you're going to have that. You know, if you're young, you're going to move into a job that will be fine. That's why Spirit is not that worried about talking to you about career. That will sort itself out by the looks of things. It's only really your higher self is really very focused on your love life at the moment, pile 2. So let's see what astrological energy they would say is important around you at the moment. Chiron and Neptune. Okay, all right. So Chiron's the wounded healer. It's where we often feel lax or where we don't feel that we've had something. There could be a sense here that you have felt you didn't have love in your life. Could be didn't feel it in your family. Could be didn't feel it in the early years of your life, you know, when you were sort of out in the world. Could be you've been alone for quite a while. I think some of you may have been. But this is also about healing that wound and healing others in doing it. There's something about what you do that is quite inspirational to others. And again, I'm getting, if you're sort of older and this is sort of something coming in, there's something inspirational about it. And Neptune is about bringing in the ideal, but being clear, because, and that's why, you know, you do need to make sure that you've been curious enough and really asked the questions and been clear about what you're doing, because Neptune can sometimes idealize as well. So don't idealize the wrong connection because you just sort of fall in love or fall in lust, really. Make sure that there's something else there. If you do that, then it will be a healing thing for you. Okay, so we're going to finish off with a couple of mythic energies, because I think your higher self would always like to think of your life as epic. So the energy that is around you, and then a crystal chakra card to get a last affirmation from them. So firstly, a couple of mythology, epic energies that your higher self wants to point out to you about you, pile 2. Hephaestus, workmanship, and the Mariah, the future. Okay, so I think that what your higher self is saying, one of the reasons, I think your higher self is trying to explain why it's not talking to you about work, because I think with these sort of cards, you probably put a lot of time and effort into work or into career, study, whatever it is. And they're saying you've actually got the workmanship, you're great. I'm not talking to you about that, not because it isn't important, but because you've got that all under control. What I'm talking to you is about a future and something that has a major fate for you with the Mariah. So this is a rite of passage. This is an important relationship. And so it's really, that's why I really want to talk to you about that. I don't want you to miss out on that side of your life, because you put so much into mastery and being independent and flexible with what you do with your life that you miss out on this other very rich emotional element that is there for you and is ready for you and is part of your fate. Okay, so let's get a crystal chakra card just to close off with a energy for you. So this is a chakra energy, so where they want you to focus and what the affirmation is. So what your higher self wants you to think about chakra-wise. Third eye chakra. So there's probably going to be a telepathic spiritual connection with this person, I would say, if they're bringing up the third eye chakra. We've got labradorite, which is about transformation and synchronicity, growth and the rites of passage. Perfect. The affirmations are, I understand the significance of synchronicity. So pay attention to signs. When you're looking for information and make your decisions, pay attention to signs. Your higher self will be sending you synchronistic information. And I am always transforming spiritually. So yes, keep transforming. Make that part of your mastery as well, because that will make you more and more clear. It will heal and make more clear and bring in the ideal for you astrologically as well. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 2. I think it's quite exciting. I think there's something really lovely coming up for you, and your higher self doesn't want you to miss out on it. So I hope it resonates. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And beyond that, if you would like to comment, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So this is another card from the Mystical Journey Oracle deck, which complements or helps to clarify the information of the card that you came for this reading, that you chose for this reading. And then we have some Archangel information and some other energy here, just to get a sense about what's the real theme that your higher self wants to talk to you about. Will help make sure that you've come to the right reading, and then presuming you have, we'll get into much more detail with a couple of different tarot decks and some oracle cards. But this is quite a clear message. So I do think that if you've come to the right reading, you'll go, okay, yeah, I know what this is talking about. So, and if not, maybe try another reading. This is about understanding that something needs to be moved on from, transitioned, let go. It's part of the cycles of life. Letting go is part of the cycles of life. And it may take a bit of courage to do this, but that is how you manifest and bring in the new and what you really want to do. And there is a requirement to have faith in yourself, faith in the capacity for the new. I do feel for many of you, this may be about a relationship, about letting go of one that hasn't worked, or one that has just ceased for some reason, letting go of the past, moving that energy out, having the courage to go back out again like the maiden does, sort of going out into the world, with a kind of an innocence and a hope and all of those sort of things, and faith that the universe will provide, that manifestation is possible, and that the journey of the passions and the creative is a journey that is worth going on. But you do need to let go of something. So this could be letting go of a creative project, potentially, given that card, that didn't work, to do something new, to have faith in your own ability and your skill, and to start that road again and have the courage to do that, and understand this is just part of the cycles of life, and sometimes things have their time and have their season, and now it's time for something else. And for others, I think it's about a relationship, letting go of past hurts, letting go of ties, cutting cords, whatever that might be, because there is something you are supposed to manifest on this earth. With Sandalphon, he is connected to earth, so he is connected to manifestation. And there is courage here, which is bringing in a kind of a discipline with the Saturn energy that is around Zafkiel, that is saying, I will understand with wisdom and with time and the cycles of time that I can bring in what I want, but I need to sort of shed the past to bring in the new. And this is an act of faith. So I think your higher self is saying there's something painful about this. There is a sense of loss. There is a sense perhaps that you want to hold on and still see if something can happen. Or for some of you, you may be grieving the loss of someone as well with these sorts of cards. And it's the courage to sort of move on and have faith that you will reconnect in the spirit at some other stage, if that's the case. But it's definitely that moving on energy around a relationship, a creative project, potentially a job. But I think with this energy, it's either creativity or it's passion. With the maiden, I feel like it's the new. So that's the message. Your higher self is saying it's time to move into the new and to let go of the past. So let's ask with tarot, firstly, for a bit more information about really what this is about, like what is the nature of what needs to be let go, and what is the nature of the courage that Zafkiel will help you with, so that Sandalphon can help you manifest. Okay, so I think with the fact that this whole line is sort of like bookmarked by cups, I think it is telling me that for most this is about an emotional relationship. It won't have to be for everybody. It is possible with the Ace of Coins, it could be a new creative project, a new business, a new job opportunity. Any of those things are possible. And certainly if that's the case, your higher self is saying letting go will help bring that in, will help manifest it. So it may be that if you're in a job that you're not happy in, but you've kind of hanging on with grim determination because I'm not going to let the bastards get me down sort of thing, there may be something better, and you start looking and you'll probably find that you'll get an opportunity and so forth. But I do think with the Equestrian Water, which is the Knight of Cups, and with the Four of Cups, this is moving into some new emotional pattern because one is not nourishing you anymore. So if you are in a relationship that's not working and you're just hanging on, hoping it's going to work out, or you've been interested in someone and it just isn't happening, or they've moved on, then you need to move on too, because you're actually not happy. And until you actually move that energy, make that decision with judgment to move that energy, then you can't let this new energy come in. You can't have the courage to bring in the new and to go on the new journey and find the new love. And there certainly is with the Ace of Coins. Anytime you see an ace, it's a blessing. Certainly, at least when it's the right way up, it's a blessing. It's telling you that something material, something could be manifested, but it's at its early stages, because you do need to let go of other things so that you can be the maiden. And this is not gender-based. It's that energy. It's a bit like the energy of the Fool in a way, but it's a little bit more kind of developed than the Fool, because it's card number 2 in this particular deck. So there is definitely that sort of sense. Interesting with the King of Air here, I think it says that for you, the way to do this, you have to convince your mind that your mind is what holds on, and your mind is very, very strong, and it really serves you well 99.999% of the time. But the trouble is, when one element really suits us, it can straitjacket us from others. And it's your mind, you trust your mind to make the decisions for you, but you do also need to trust your heart a little bit more. And your heart ultimately will tell your mind it's time to move on. Your mind, if you're kind of stubborn, I think, pile 3, and I can be stubborn, so I'm not saying that to be critical. But I think you do need to sort of get your mind in accordance with your heart. That will allow you to make the decision to let go and move on. So let's ask for a key message from your higher self about this, and then we're going to ask for any warnings that they may have about it for you. Okay, so a key message here is that you are slow to change once you have been interested in someone. You kind of like stick with something. There is a stick-at-itness, a kind of stubbornness, as I say, and it can make you stay with the wrong people. So I do think this is around relationship. And what that does is it then saps your sense of self, your sense of recognition. It's like you've been with someone, you've been with someone who makes you incrementally feel lesser, and yet you'll keep wanting them to now validate you to make you feel okay again, or you're interested in someone and it isn't working and you just feel if they validated you and liked you back, it would mean something. It's your higher self is saying you're worth more than this, but you got to let go when something isn't working, because that's affecting your self-esteem and it's affecting your judgment about it. But it's like you want to win the battle. It's almost like you're with someone who is not committing, and then you get them to commit, and the minute they commit you go, okay, fine, now I don't need it. And I don't mean it as cold-blooded as that, but there's a sense here of you need the validation from the person. You've given your sense of self to someone else. You have to take that back by letting it go. It doesn't matter, because that then allows you to really bring in something that is going to validate you as well as be what is right for your heart. So let's see what warning Spirit has, because this almost seems like a warning, but we'll just sort of see what your higher self also wants to warn or advise you about this. Okay. No decision is a decision, is what I first heard when I put that down. So know that if you keep in something just to keep in it because you can't decide, that is a decision in itself, and that keeps you stuck. And you're stuck in something that's not being true to yourself with the Seven of Swords reversed, and may have quite a few mind games involved, and you're not releasing the mind tension. I'm actually getting that for many of you, if you are in a relationship or if you're chasing one constantly that isn't taking, what has been the original part of this was a meeting of the minds, and it was a very strong meeting of the minds, but because that's the case, but the rest isn't there, it's now actually, it turns your own mind, which, as I said, is very strong, against you. It's very, very, debilitating for you to stay in this situation. That's why it's saying let go. Have the courage to do that. You can bring in something much better. Okay, so that's on the material level. We also want to use the Tarot of Magical Correspondences to see what your higher self wants to say about how this matters to your spiritual development. In this deck, I can have a look at what Sephiroth of the Kabbalah are being activated at the moment to get a bit of additional information, as well as the classic meaning of the cards. So we have Okay, so firstly, on the Kabbalah level of this, there's a very clear question that your higher self wants you to ask. We have Hod coming up 3 times, so more than any of the other Sephiroth. Hod is all about your sincerity, where you can live your truth, where you can be true to yourself. Your higher self is saying that if you are not in the right truth in a relationship, then it is not the right place to be. You can't really be at home with yourself. You can't really be true to yourself. And we've got Malkuth coming up 2 times as well. So it's very much saying this is something that's happening in this material world. This is about relationship. It's not, I don't think it is really about creativity in it or anything, even though you could potentially bring that into the world. But I really feel this is very grounded in who you are, where you are at home, what is your sense of self within the world. That's why. And this is also the cycles of time, because Malkuth, in a sense, being Earth, is about life and death. It's about the cycles of time as well. So where you can be true to yourself is what you need to focus on. And with Hasod there, you can connect that truth to some sort of spiritual connection. This is why the manifestation is possible. And with Binah, there is a sense of loving compassion, and you should be looking for loving compassion. That's probably what's been missing in this, because it's all been very mental. It's all been very much in the air realm, and that's now not working for you. It's time to let go and like let your mind let go. In terms of the classic meaning of the cards, got Judgment again. This is all about just making a decision. Make a decision. Let go. Princess of Wands is telling yourself and working out for yourself, what is it that would really make me feel passionate in my life, in this world? You know, what passion, not just intellectual stuff. Queen of Swords and 8 of Swords says that you can sometimes, again, turn your own mind against yourself and entrap yourself. So be aware that's what you're doing. There is so much more for you. The sun is here. There is something really beautiful that you can manifest, but you do have to let go of what hasn't worked. It's not a failure, Pile 3. It's not. It served its purpose at its time, and it was probably very mentally stimulating, but there's more for you, is what your higher self is saying. Okay, so let's have a look at some personal characteristics your higher self wants you to think about. These may either be ones that they want you to do more of or less of, depending upon what ones we get. Language, benevolence. Okay, so I think there's a kind of a double meaning for this. I think on one level, it's saying speak out, speak your truth. That will help you let go. And be benevolent to yourself. Allow yourself to do that. Be kind to yourself. You're not very kind to yourself, Pile 3. You're actually a little bit harsh on yourself. You want to, winning the battle, in a sense, being proven right, whatever it might be. Maybe some of you have had people who said this was the wrong relationship, so you felt you had to prove it to them. But you don't have to prove it to them. If it's not working for you, just move on. That's not making them right. That's just making you evolve and move into something that's better for you. I think the other thing, though, is that you may speak the language of benevolence and kindness to this person. You may not want to hurt their feelings, you know, if you're, and so forth. So there may be that if they're clinging on and you can't let go for that reason, then maybe you need to sort of balance out that and think about what is truly benevolent to you or to them. If it's not working anymore and you need to let go, then the most benevolent thing that you can do is to let go. Okay, let's see what other personal characteristics your higher self wants to talk about. Performing arts, travel and venture, dark complexion. Okay, there could be something. You could have a dark complexion. The person that you're needing to let go of could have a dark complexion. The person you're meant to connect with could have a dark complexion, because I think there's a new love, a new manifestation, a new sort of way of being sort of in the world, but you know, it's got to come after you let go. Travel and adventure might be saying, just go on a holiday, that'll help. Go and see some shows, you know, and entertain yourself. Like, just take yourself out of your head into something that's fun and adventurous. That will help you with letting go. Okay, let's have a look also at sort of the evolution of your soul, what sort of energies your higher self is connecting to this for you. Trailblazer. Orion. Okay. So Trailblazer, I think, is saying that with this brilliant mind you have, and I think there is a very strong creative energy around you as well too, if you aren't entrapping yourself in what isn't working anymore, you can blaze your trail and you can be different. And if you've hung on to something like a relationship or a creative project, whatever it might be, just to prove yourself right, you're slowing yourself down. So you're just meant to just keep getting out there, having the courage, keep moving out there. It will work itself out. Orion is being driven by the mind again. So this is just your higher self saying, don't let that, completely stop you. Well, you are here to learn how to love. And you can struggle with relationships because you live in your mind too much. So it's just Spirit saying this is something quite sort of intergalactic for you in a way. It's sort of part of your soul. It's your challenge, but it keeps you trapped sometimes. So you need to make sure your mind works for you, not against you. Okay, let's have a look in career, because some of this could impact on career. It could be, as I say, a job that you need to move away from. Got award and candle. I think that's probably saying for most it isn't. That doesn't look too stressed, really. Award suggests that you're getting recognition for what you do and so forth. I mean, if you are in a job that you no longer really enjoy and it's hard to let go because you get the recognition and everybody thinks you're the smartest person in the room, which you probably are, then that could be your higher self saying, think about whether or not that's ultimately what you want long term, or has it had its time and it's time to go and do something else. But I think for most, this is suggesting that your career is going fine, you have ambition, you take the action that you need there. And I think it may be a bit of a double message for you. I think that your higher self might also be saying you wouldn't hang on to what wasn't working in your career. Why do it around your relationships? Okay, let's have a look with astrology, what astrology energy your higher self wants to point out to you at the moment. Cardinal, North Node. Yeah, so Cardinal, you could be Aries, Cancer, Libra or Capricorn, or have that strongly in your chart. So Cardinal energies, which makes you a natural initiator, a natural trailblazer. But it may just be saying that's the energy, the astrological energy that is good. It kind of takes your mind off it, so you let go and it kind of brings in the manifestation almost as a side product of it all, and that is heading towards who you're meant to be. You're meant to be someone who has the courage and the manifestation to bring in whatever this is, the right love for you, the right creative project, whatever it might be. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to draw a couple of cards from a Greek mythology deck to look at what your epic energy is, because I'm sure your higher self wants you to be epic. And then we're going to draw a card from the Crystal Chakra deck for a chakra energy and a final set of affirmations for you. So, Poseidon and the underworld. Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, Poseidon here is talking about avarice, about sort of like wanting to sort of hold things. So that it may be that your higher self is saying a bit of tough love here, like don't hold on to something just to hold on to it. Poseidon is also, of course, the god of water and so forth and storms. So clear things through, let go, don't hold on just to hold on. But you may have a tendency a bit to do that because of the mind. It might be like I gather my things to me and they're mine sort of thing. Think about that and think about what kind of shadow energy could be around that. You are highly powerful, actually. I think this is saying this is why you can manifest. With the underworld and with avarice, if you let go of some of the energy that isn't working for you anymore, you look at your shadow to do that and have the courage to do that, that's when you manifest. So there's a process. There's almost a dark night of the soul to go through to get you to where you need to be and to let go properly. And you are capable of doing that. You have the strength of mind and the strength of heart to go into the underworld and to see that and to transform with that sort of Pluto energy. Okay, so that's pretty full on for the epic side of things. So let's just see what chakra your higher self wants you to focus on and some final affirmations for you, pile 3. Crown chakra, so your connection to the divine. Aqua aura quartz. It's about the higher self and activation. Yeah, there's something more for you, pile 3, than what you're settling at the moment, almost stubbornly. So turn all that energy towards your true manifestation. And this is about, as I said, higher self and activation. The affirmations that your higher self wants to leave you with now are, I activate my inner goddess. So yeah, the inner strength of you, and it's goddess or God. And I always listen to my higher self. So yes, do listen to your higher self. Don't just sit in the mental plane. Listen to something that is above that. Listen to your higher self. Listen literally to this reading, because this is your higher self talking to you. So I hope that that resonates for you, pile 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So this is the other card from the Mystical Journey deck that, in combination with self-care, which is what drew you to this reading, or may have been what drew you to this reading, gives us some kind of overarching narrative sense about what your higher self wants to talk about. Then we have some archangel information and some Dreams of Gaia tarot information. I think, and part of the reason for doing this is so that you can make sure you're in the right reading. I think if you're in the right reading, what will resonate for you is quite clear from this. There's kind of one of two things, but they are probably connected. One is that some who have come here, you may need to do self-care and to grieve the loss of someone potentially with afterlife. Now, this is not saying that's coming up now. This spirit would not do that, and higher self would not do that to you. So this is not a prediction. This is more around if somebody has passed more recently in your life. And so there may be some self-care and looking after yourself that's necessary to do that, but there is some connection that will remain with that person, like a spiritual connection, and it will give you a sense that, you know, life after death is possible and all of those sorts of things. There is a gift in it if that's the case. Restores your sense of self and faith and so forth, if that's the case, with Camael here and with Raziel there. Very strongly potentially that, and there's a grounded level to it that you can sort of see the point of the universe in a way, emotional light coming into you, a real sense of awareness and psychic energy, and some support around you with a counselor energy here as well too. So some of you who have come here may be going through that. For everybody else, because that's quite specific, I think for everybody else that is writing this is to tell you that you have a natural mediumship ability, a natural spiritual sort of channeling ability, and that you are probably destined in one way or another to help others with issues around grief, around loss, around emotional challenges and so forth. You have a grounded, generous spirit. You have true enlightenment. You have true spiritual gifts with Neptune, with Raziel there. And then you have a natural capacity to be a counsellor. So the self-care that you do, you can actually bring to others, to take them through, to see the sort of grander scheme of things and so forth, and to restore in yourself and in others that sense of that life goes on, or that the spirit goes on, or that grief can be dealt with, or emotional blockages can be released, whatever it might be that you're helping them with. It's not always going to be about mediumship and people passing on, but I think you are a natural medium. And if you don't realize that, I think your higher self wants you to know. And you're meant to act on this ability in some way. So it could be a career that you do, but it could also just be what you do with friends and so forth. But what I'm feeling is if it is around friends and so forth, it's not something, or mediumship, it's not sort of something that is in your career, but it's something that you do. There is a sense of like taking the learning, get grounded energy here. Don't just sort of go, I have the natural gift and do it. There is something about remembering something, I think, from past lives, but there's also something about making sure you look after yourself by having the right sort of information, the right grounding, the right learning and so forth, because it's like mastering a skill. It's taking a gift and mastering the skill, and there is some work to do on that if you want to use this. So that's pretty specific. So let's see what else Spirit can tell us, like if there's further information on this, so what your higher self wants to say to you. Firstly, on a broad level, then we're going to drill into what the key message is and what the advice or warnings might be around it before we look at using a different deck for spiritual connections. And this is a highly spiritual reading, I have to say. So let's start with the broad brush. Give us some more detail, please. Higher self collective for pile 4. Okay, so your higher self is definitely saying there's something here that could have a material outcome. I do think for, and there is something specific if there's been a loss, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I do think for most people it's saying your higher self wants you to know you could make a business out of this, you could do the learning out of this, you could create the skill and restore something. But it is remembering, I think, but nevertheless it's getting that kind of heft to what you do and bringing it into the material world. You definitely could do that. You've maybe not focused on it. You've maybe almost sort of pushed it to the side or thought you were imagining the ability or whatever. And it's possible that you don't see it as something that, you know, could be your career or make you money. So Spirit is saying it could, or you could make the choice that you do your career elsewhere and you do this as sort of something separate. That's up to you. So the longer term financial side of this should not be your concern right now. You'll be okay financially. The issue is whether or not that would be something you wanted to do as a, you know, counselling job, or, you know, some sort of therapist, or as a medium who works in this sort of thing full time. That's a decision yet to be made. You don't need to make that decision yet because you're not quite ready to go out and do this fully yet. You could do it with friends, or you could do it with people that you're training to do it, but you're not quite ready yet. It's your higher self is saying don't go rushing out doing it yet. You can certainly celebrate how far you've come with it, and you are certainly putting the right people around you, and you've clarified what your journey is around it, but you're not quite ready to let go yet. Maybe because you haven't worked out how much you want this to be a part of your career or material life, and how far you want to take the Ace of Coins. So you're at the beginning, but you have the latent ability. It's there. I suspect you had it in a past life. You have the gifts, but there is learning to do, there is grounding to do, and so forth, and self-care so that you don't go too fast and burn yourself out is sort of the energy that I'm feeling with this. If it is around a loss, then I get a feeling that your higher self is saying that this person is going to be reborn somewhere around you in the not too distant future. I mean, that might be a few years from now. But it feels like some cause of celebration around friends or family may bring that energy back in. So it's just a kind of, your higher self is just affirming to you, you know, let the grief go, let it move through. You know, there are cycles of life and so forth. Okay, but as I say, that's quite specific. Let's ask what the key message then is for the collective of Pile 4 from their higher selves. Okay. I think the Ten of Swords here is picking up the mediumship thing again. This is all about spiritual ability. This is all about life after death. This is all about psychic ability. And it's really just showing that there's something in the area of endings that is part of your pathway, and understanding and helping people and bringing clarity to people around it is part of your pathway. But again, it's saying with the Two of Swords, it's not time yet to fully commit the decision. You've got some decisions to make. You've got to take the blindfold off. You've got to really think about this, not to get precipitous. I think what your higher self is saying, because you have this very strong natural gift, you may think it's all just there, but there are decisions to make and there are things to do. Otherwise, you could actually limit what you do right from the outset. You could act precipitously and limit it, and therefore, as far as you could go with this, you won't go as far as you could. Doesn't necessarily, and you could burn yourself out. This is the other thing. You may just need to learn proper boundaries so that you don't take on other people's stuff too much. Let's ask what warning Spirit might have for you, or your higher self has for you around this. So I think they've already been warning you, but let's just see if there's anything else. Okay. So your higher self is saying on a psychic level, spiritual level, you're very powerful, and there is a lot from the past. This is why it's restoration. You may well have done some very significant sort of magic with a K, you know, so high magician stuff in past lives potentially. Or you may even have been doing something in that space, and in doing that, you've actually now learned that you're a medium as well. Either way, the only way you can have peace of mind with this is what you do is just and right. So there is a little bit of a warning here from your higher self that once you get aware of this sort of power, it can corrupt. It's like that thing, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's not saying that's going to happen to you, but it's saying that's why it's important to get the learning. It's why it's important not to rush ahead too much. You may end up saying the wrong thing or hurting people, not meaning to, because you are overwhelming them with your power and your gifts and what you see. So it's important to be able to moderate that and to have a structure to do it within. And also, if you do it as a career, you need to have the right legal sort of protection for yourself as well. Don't just go out and do it sort of in a market and sort of hope for the best. You do actually need some legal protection around this sort of work just as much as you would in any other kind of work. Okay, so let's use the Tarot of Magical Correspondences, which will probably be pretty powerful for you. and see what your higher self wants to say about this in terms of your spiritual journey. So in doing this, I'm going to be looking at the Kabbalistic references first, then I'll have a look at the classic meaning of the cards as well. Oops, I don't use reversals in this deck. Okay, so you do have one particular Sephiroth that is shown a little bit more than the others. So, and that's about Christ consciousness, Tiphereth, joy, beauty, balance. So I think it is saying that what you're meant to be doing with the self-care side of this afterlife is bringing joy and balance and a connection to the divine with people. You know, so it's very important to always make sure that it comes from a joyous place and a place that is about connection to the divine. You have a nice balance here of Chokmah and Binah. So Chokmah is wisdom, but it's undifferentiated wisdom. So that's just the clear channel. Binah gives it compassion. I think that's the journey that your spirit guides want you to, and your higher self here wants you to think about. That you have the ability, the connection already, but you need to also put it into a structure so that it is delivered in a compassionate way. Because you are meant with Malkuth here to be bringing this to the earth. You are meant to be doing something, I think, business-wise or something earthy anyway around it. It's not just meant to be an airy-fairy thing which you commune with the divine and see angels or whatever. You're actually meant to do something with this. But the journey is from moving from just the channeling into the compassion. And there's something about learning and not going too fast until you've got that learning that's important that your higher self wants you to know. Then you will make sure that it is always connected in the most joyful way. In terms of the classic meaning of the cards, there is good relationships to have coming out of this. Peace of mind, again, certainly peace of mind when you connect it to the heart center and to the Christ consciousness center, in whatever that means to you, that you don't have to be a Christian. There is also great intellectual rigor to this. This is why there's a structure to put this in with the Queen of Swords, and you do need to do that. Do not just go on just your basic talent, because you might want to. Princess of Wands over here, like the Page of Wands, you get really excited about the creativity about it. That can go a little bit too fast. You need the Queen of Swords to bring that in, particularly as the Knight of Swords can also go too fast. Both the Knight of Swords and the Knight of Wands can act and then think about it later. Knight of Swords is likely to be more mercurial and a bit quicker and cleverer about it, but nevertheless, it's like this is not about you being the smartest person in the room, powerful. This is not about you knowing something that other people don't know and just blurting it out. It is about you understanding how to put this in a way that really helps people, because your ability is profound and the capacity for helping others is profound also, but only if you put it in a structure that protects you and protects others. Okay. So your higher self's a bit stern, I have to say, but I think they're stern because you have so much to offer and they just want you to protect yourself and others in doing it. So let's ask about some things in your personal nature that they either want you to do more or less of, depending upon what comes out. We're going to use a couple of decks around that to just get a bit more clarity around how this affects your personal presence. Constructiveness and sublimity. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the thing. Doing this constructively for a start. You know, if you just blurt out everything you have, then it's not going to be constructive or helpful. So there's something about understanding how to construct that. It's not necessarily a contrivance to do that. It's actually to make it constructive. But if you construct something without the proper underpinnings for it, then it could just seem like a contrivance. It's like trigger warning, you say, and then blurt a whole bunch of things out. And that's not really going to help people. So it's understanding the difference between a contrivance, you know, like a kind of a get out of jail free card to then just say whatever you want, compared to something that's constructive. And that's the sublimity. And you actually have the capacity for that. There's no doubt that you have the capacity for that. You're very well developed. It's just to understand that, because you get enthusiastic. And it's lovely to be enthusiastic, but you have a strength in dealing with this. You're kind of cool with it all. Other people are not as far advanced, so you need to bring in that sublimity, that kind of nuance to what you do. That then makes what you do incredibly resplendent, incredibly beautiful and helpful for people. Okay, let's have a look at another deck, which is about personal characteristics, a little bit more in the material world potentially than the psychological world, which we've just looked at. sense of humour, problem solver, spiritual. Okay, this is the perfect balance, actually. Bit of sense of humour, bit of lightness of touch, never wit at the expense of someone else, but like kind of lightening the thing a little bit. Being a problem solver, but a spiritual one. I remember that famous book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, or whatever it was called, where they went, the problem is that men all just want to solve your problem and women want to talk about it, and that's why they clash, which is incredibly reductive. I'm sure there was much more in the book. I don't mean to put shade on the book, but that just general concept that all men are like this and all women are like this. But there's some truth to what they're saying about personality characteristics, and the personality characteristics in there are around, sometimes some people just want to get to answering the question, solving the problem. And if you don't have the structure of this, that's what you'll want to do. Because you want to rush into helping people. You actually want to help people, but you'll go, right, this is it, blah. But if you connect to the spiritual side and you bring in the knowing and the learning, you're not going to do that. You're going to help other people learn how to solve their own problems. So as I say, in that book, the kind of perfect balance, I'm sure, and as I say, I haven't read the book, so I'm not meaning to put shade on it, but the concept that people talked about, if you kind of brought that together and nuanced it, and it was that the person's problem-solving side and the listening side came together, then that empowers other people to solve their own problems. So that's kind of your coaching methodology, I guess, as much as anything else. Okay, so those are personality characteristics. Let's have a look at some spiritual energy, because you're highly spiritual. A lot of this is about spiritual stuff, so it'll be interesting to see what else your higher self wants to say about you spiritually. Pile 4. Victory. Synchronicity. So victory will be yours. Yes, you will do this. Spirit is just wanting to make sure that when you do it, you look after yourself and other people appropriately. You don't have to rush. Give it the time, get it. You will be good at this because you're just naturally good at it. It's restoring something that you've done before. And synchronicity, you are very aligned. Once you do this is very aligned to your soul purpose. You're really doing what you're meant to do in the world. So it's the right path. It's just how quickly you go down it, as of when you're hearing this reading, because there'll be a point where you've got all that and this is no longer the message that you need. Okay, let's see how it impacts with career, because this could potentially be your career, but it may not be at the moment. So let's see what your higher self wants to say about that. Got eggs and book. Okay. All right, so there's a couple of things I get from this. One is it's that kind of concept of don't put all your eggs in one basket. So this may be sort of something you do at the side for the moment and build up, a nest egg so that you can do what you need to do with it. Certainly does say healthcare career. So, this kind of the therapeutic thing may be a way that you do this and you incorporate your psychic and spiritual ability into that in some way, and it will bring opportunities. But with insurance there and with book, which can be legal work, so I'm saying if you're going to do this as a career, make sure you get the right insurances, you've got the right sort of legal support around it as well. That's very important to protect yourself in these scenarios. And the learning as you go, paperwork and so forth, taking a class. So there's some learning to do, and then you can, and some of it may be around business. It might even just be that Spirit is saying, actually, you're kind of okay spiritually. That's not the issue. The issue is learning about what you need to do with business. So you'll know better which might apply to you. Let's have a look at some astrological energy that Spirit or your higher self wants you to focus on right now. Pile 4. First house and Sagittarius. So I think the first house here is saying you need to get out in the world. There really is an encouragement here once you've sort of got the grounding to do something with this in the world with the first house. This is part of who you are. This is part of your persona. But I think it is also saying with any first house placements, you do have to be careful that you think about the impact on others as well. There's a kind of a rushing forward energy with first house placements in a way, because it is about yourself in the world. So I think it's just that balance. Sagittarius gives a philosophical framework for this. This is the point. It's something like that. Learning. Sagittarius it picks up learning and so forth as well. And sometimes travel, sort of, traveling both internally, externally, to the after world, to the other dimensions, whatever that is, that could be doing that as well too. And its tarot card is Temperance, so it's just the balance. It's only balance. All the ability is there. Okay, so to close off pile 4, I want to draw a couple of cards from a Greek mythology deck to show what your higher self wants your epic myth, your personal myth, your epic life energy to be, coming off this particular piece of advice. And then we'll get a crystal chakra card for some last affirmations for you for this reading. So we have Eris, which is about strife, okay, and Persephone, transformation, okay. Yeah, you are meant to be able to take people from the strife and the issues and so forth that they're dealing with, and particularly sort of psychological and spiritual ones, and transform that with Persephone. And you can go to the depths in a way that other people can't. That's why you're sort of a medium, that sort of thing. So you are meant to really take people on an epic journey from where they feel lost, they feel grieving, whatever it might be, into something truly transformative. That's who you are. But you could have strife if you haven't done the full transformation yourself first. So it's almost physician, heal thyself, and then move forward and heal others. Okay, so to close off pile 4, we're just going to pull a crystal chakra card, which it will give the chakra energy that your higher self most wants you to focus on, and some affirmations to close out the reading. So we have the root chakra. See, this is interesting because you're all in the upper realms. I thought it'll be a root chakra or it'll be a crown chakra with you. So it's interesting it's a root. And I think this is just the reading for now. It's like once you've done the learning, you've put it in place, you'd be much more a crown chakra energy. But this is because you need the foundations. But with Ruby, we have spontaneity and motivation. So don't let this, I think your higher self is saying, don't let this put you off. Don't let it feel like, oh God, I've got to go and learn this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. That's not the point. Still be motivated, still be spontaneous about it. That's just a process to go through. Once you've got it in your kit bag, you've got it there. So the affirmations are, I feel motivated to achieve my goals, and I allow myself to be spontaneous. So yes, don't completely straitjacket yourself, and you can certainly sort of practice some of this with friends and so forth. But make sure that you stay motivated to the goals, and you see every step as part of the journey, because as I say, you have profound gifts. And you can do a lot to help others and also yourself in the process of doing this. But it's really just a matter of speed and a little bit of humility about, I need to put the frameworks in place before I do this, because that will then make you exponentially more effective in terms of helping others. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 4. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd be fascinated to hear, because I think it's a very interesting energy. But otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.